Hey, Mark. Good morning. How are you today?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good. It's good to be with you once again. Mark, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you want to talk about, and then let's pause and just give an introduction to who we are and what this is all about.
Sure. Well, Mike, I thought it might be an interesting topic, kind of what are we pursuing beyond our basic needs, and we have desires for a variety of things, perhaps more luxury in our life or certain uh, circumstances or um, possessions and so forth that we think would be a target for us. And to talk a little bit about mismatch that can occur sometimes between what we, as we look back, have really valued and what we're doing now in terms of pursuing something that would somehow bring greater happiness. So, talk a
Yeah.
little bit about our needs and our wants, and when our wants kind of lose their focus and direction.
Oh, very good. I'm looking forward to having a discussion with you about this. Before we dive in, let me just remind people who we are. This is Mind, Mood, and Medicine. I'm Dr. Michael Smith, and I'm with my friend and colleague, Dr. Mark Johnston. Both of us are board-certified psychiatrists. Both of us have a lot of years of experience behind us. We enjoy talking about a variety of topics. We find these conversations challenging and stimulating to our own thinking, which we appreciate, and we hope that it will do the same for whoever tunes in. Just a reminder, we are not providing direct medical care to anyone through these podcasts. If you find a need or if we stir something up, we encourage you to seek out care from your personal provider. So with that little intro and disclaimer, Mark, let's dive in. I want to hear the story that you have to tell me.
So, Mike, I wanted to tell you about a little story of my early days. I think I was about 9, 10 years old. I was with my wonderful grandmother, my grandmother Hardy, and she lived in Bozeman, Montana. And we were fishing partners. And so we had an outing. We actually did fishing most days I was visiting in Bozeman. It was a regular activity for us. But one day we went out on the Gallatin River, and it was a sunshiny early September day, I believe. And we were in our old Chrysler New Yorker. And I remember I was just kind of wearing a T-shirt and Levi's. I remember stepping out of the car and having an interesting sense, even at that early age, that this was kind of is almost as good as it gets. The sun was warming my back. The smell of early fall was in the air. The sound of
And
the
you're there
river
with
was
your you're,
there
you're
with
there
my
with your grandma fishing. Yeah,
who was
that's
my
great.
mentor, and he had a great sense of humor and a lot of fun. So, this is a kind of memory perhaps many people have of an early time, or being with a special person. But it got me thinking that as an adult, I pursue a lot of ways to find satisfaction or comfort or some level of luxury, even perhaps. And I'm not sure that I'm always successful or maybe even targeting the things that most matter. And I try to still keep a focus on relationships that matter, on simple things. But I think for all of us, there can be a tendency to get involved in trying to find happiness, satisfaction, and it eludes us some as we try harder and harder, sometimes maybe doing the very things that take us away from the simple pleasures that I was experiencing that day in Bozeman.
Yeah. Well, that's a great introduction. And I'm glad you had that experience. Not everyone gets to go fishing with their grandma. So that's a nice image for me to have of your early experience. You're making me think of some research that I'm aware of that looks at the association between uh, income levels and happiness. And if you really have no money and no resources, having a few dollars in your pocket will make you happier. And if you keep increasing the dollar amounts and getting more wealth in your pocket, your happiness goes up, but it does peak out after a while. So the difference, I think, in today's dollars between someone making, let's say, $100,000 a year or $500,000 a year, the happiness with the person making $500,000 a year is about the same as the person getting by with 100,000. So there's an association between monetary well-being and happiness up to a certain point. But then the curves diverge where having more money maybe is a nice thing, but it doesn't necessarily lead to more happiness. I think people pursue things that they think will give them more happiness, but in the end, it can be a little bit empty.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, and
that
I
makes
was
me,
aware.
oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, I was going to make reference to a concept from a textbook. This is a nice read if you ever want to spend a little time reading some pretty dense uh, information on how we think. Existential psychotherapy for from Irvin Yalom. He noted in here something that I think is interesting. He was referring to Viktor Frankl, and a lot of people may recognize Viktor Frankl's name. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. That's an interesting story from him about having spent a few years in a concentration camp. And I would like to talk about that more maybe another time. But in here, he says, this is from Dr. Yalom. He says, another major objection Frankl offers to a non-transcendental pleasure principle view of human motivation is that it is always self-defeating. The more one seeks happiness, the more it will elude one. This observation, termed the hedonistic paradox, led Frankl to say, happiness ensues, it cannot be pursued. Another thinker on this said, it's only when you seek it that you lose it. So I don't want to overstate it, but I think we do find sometimes that the direct pursuit of pleasure leaves us feeling not fully satisfied. Maybe like just eating sugar all the time doesn't leave our appetites really satisfied. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Mark?
Well, that's interesting. It begs the question, though, I guess, if you were being contrarian a little bit on that idea, you might say, well, that's fine. I shouldn't produce or pursue happiness directly, but then how do I pursue it? Do I hang out hoping to become satisfied, or in other words, what directions do I take? And I think the answer to that may be that there are directions and there are activities that will put one in a place where uh, happiness and satisfaction and meaning can be secured, but it's just a different thing to pursue the end result directly as opposed to pursuing the environment and the circumstances that can result in happiness and satisfaction. So, as a
Yeah.
practical example of that, you know, I'm making so much money I can take some little trips with my family, maybe go to the park, do some activities, or I can work a 70, 80-hour week, make an extra, um, how many more dollars and so forth, essentially use up the time I have, and then take a real elaborate, fancy vacation that may even not match up very well with the needs of the family and may only occur intermittently because of the expense or difficulty in managing the lifestyle that I've created. So this perhaps is not a super coherent example, but what I mean by that is that choosing an environment, choosing a work schedule and priorities in the here and now may result in a better opportunity for satisfaction and meaning and meaningful relationships than to work harder, make more money, and to try to do something fancier with the result. So
Yeah. Yeah, I like Frankel's comment that it ensues. So rather than pursuing it, just living in a situation or in a way where it can ensue. And I think the story you told earlier about being on a fishing trip with your grandmother, I don't know what, I mean, you were 10 years old or so at the time. I don't know what your thought process was at the time, but you were in a situation and your grandmother was as well. We're not talking about her perspective too much yet, but it was a situation where happiness could kind of distill upon you rather than being something that you forcefully grab. And I suspect your grandmother felt that as well. She probably put in some effort to provide this opportunity for the two of you to go fishing together.
oh yeah.
And I'll bet as a result of that, she was in a situation where that satisfaction, that feeling of bonding with you and being close, I think that distilled upon her and settled with her. Um, I think that's a good example of maybe how we can find more happiness is putting
It is
ourselves in a
interesting,
situation where it may distill upon us.
but I would challenge people if you go to a bookstore, of course, there are all manner of books written and on all manner of subjects. But I think you find a lot of books on how to make more money or to how to target your business success and so on. And understandably, why it's understandable why such books would exist. I'm not sure there are as many books on targeting the circumstance where happiness would ensue, if you know what I'm saying. In other words, I don't know. I think there are things directly that you can do to put yourself in a better position and priorities and clarity on goals that help you get to a place where you're more likely to have that happiness and satisfaction ensue. But
Yeah,
people don't always know, uh, don't always target it. And I think one of the issues is a personal question is what is a priority? How do you really want to spend your time? For me, like I said, it wasn't a complicated thing. Of course, I was a kid at the time, but even as an adult, I enjoy going out in a pickup truck, getting in the rural environment where things are lower pressure and a little less hectic, being with a good friend that conversation could be on any number of things and not even have a real focused direction, just enjoying the moment. So, and what I'm saying, I guess, is that am I going to be thinking about targeting those kind of opportunities, or am I going to get wrapped up in that? Well, I'm going to take a multi-continent, uh, you know, vacation or something, but I'm going to
yeah,
save my money 10 years to do it or something like that.
yeah.
And in the meantime, work 78 hours a day. So, yeah, I'm belaboring the point a little bit, but the idea there are trade-offs, and sometimes the things that we may most enjoy and find the greatest satisfaction from are not that hard or that expensive, but they need to have time and they need to have priority.
I think this is an invitation to step back, quietly consider what is of value to us and how our life ought to be oriented. I want to talk just for a minute, Mark, if I may, about another man who was known for his wisdom. And I'm thinking of King Solomon from the Old Testament days. Solomon lived about, I don't know, 3,000 years ago, and he was a powerful ruler in the Israel kingdom at that time. And he had pretty much everything he wanted. Um, it's interesting. In the book of Ecclesiastes, which is in the Old Testament, for those of you who are scriptorians there, I really like what he said. And Solomon, just to give you a little background, he sought out a lot of different things. He sought wisdom, and he was successful. He became known for his wisdom. He sought power. Well, he had that. He was the king of Israel and had a lot of power that went with that. He sought pleasure, and he had a lot of that too. I don't know how many wives and concubines he had offhand, but if that's a measure of some of his pleasure, he was successful in that realm as well. And I think it's interesting in Ecclesiastes where he reflects on this. He says, "The words of the preacher," meaning himself, "the son of David, king of Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever." I won't read much more about that. But it is interesting that his reflection on all that he had was that it wasn't all that satisfying. He goes on, as if you read the rest of that, to describe some of the things that were more satisfying to him. But it wasn't the wealth and the power and the pleasure seeking that really brought him the most satisfaction in life. I think that those words stir my thoughts a lot on this topic.
Yeah.
I'm not against having good things. I think it's nice to have nice things in life, but sometimes we might overestimate the value of those things.
I think you're exactly right. And it's interesting how many of us, if we have a to-do list, either the to-do list gets preoccupied with just chores and general activities and the busyness of life. If we do make a priority list, a lot of times that can focus on success economically or other targets. But I'm not sure how often we always say, what are the things that really would be most comfortable, happiness, bring our family closer together, and how do we do that? Does it really take that much money? Does it really take that much effort to do, or might we, pursue some of the together time or some of the working together opportunities that really have some meaning to them and are not that hard to pursue as some of the things that we think we might need to really be happy.
Yeah. Mark, I think for me, this always stirs up a lot of thoughts about how to spend my time and energy in life. And I hope other people will join with me in considering what their priorities are and what is ultimately significant and important in their lives and what brings them the most satisfaction. Those moments like you
Yeah.
had with your grandma, those are irreplaceable and valuable beyond maybe something you could buy with a bunch of money. So I think
The
that's good to
question
keep in
is,
mind.
for all of us, are there opportunities? We can't return to our youth necessarily. We can't recreate the exact circumstances. But the question is, do we have opportunities? Can we find the kind of elements that made that original experience I talked about satisfying? Can we do the kinds of things that bring the opportunity for that kind of experience again? So,
Right. We've talked about some paradoxes before, and this idea of a hedonistic paradox is one of those. I think I'd like to revisit the idea of paradoxes in the future. But for now, Mark, we've gone for our allotted 20 minutes or what we're allowing ourselves to go, and I think we should wrap up. I do think this is an important topic for people to consider. What ultimately is most soul satisfying? And hopefully we've stirred some thoughts for those who might be tuning in. So
yeah.
good to be with you, Mark.
Yeah, good to be with you, Mike. Wish you all the best, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good. See you later.
See you.